Hey folks, Steve here with another Korean War Designer Signature Edition video. I think I'm just going to say the Korean War playthrough series from now on rather than having it be a big mouthful. We're going to be doing turn 2 in this video. So we successfully got through turn 1 in one video, though it was still over an hour long. Some of that just being because the term was actually abbreviated. So we weren't doing everything that we would normally do. There's still different mechanics that are layered on as we play through the game. So turn 1 was actually relatively easy to get through, or at least start getting played. But now we're going to have kind of the full turn experience, which is going to involve a lot more movement of different things and a few more additional steps. Though given it's still turn 1, there are still a number of the special rules that are going to keep things constrained. There is one thing that it is very important that I call out, something that I realized after recording turn 1. I tagged it as a comment on that video, as a top comment, a pinned comment to see, which is like I sort of understood after looking at the map for a while what I maybe didn't do as well as I should have, or like I fell into what I think is probably a noob trap. So something important to keep in mind that in this game, and it, it's worth taking a look at some of the rules. You could maybe get some of these things wrong if you weren't careful or interpret them incorrectly. Uh, Conducting combat does not mean that you flip to your fatigued side. In fact, uh, it's just your last action. Once you're out of action points, you flip to your fatigue side. So um, it is entirely possible that you could have a unit that the very first thing that they do is say they have 2 to 3 action points. From now on, they'll have 3 action points. But even on turn 1, you have 2 action points. Well, you spend one of those for a normal combat, right? You don't get any you don't get the +1 bonus for it being an intense attack. You just do an attack for one action point. You get whatever results of the combat that you get, and then you have potentially 1 or 2 action points left. Well, you can still use those points to move, and then if you have 3 points, you might even be able to attack again. You can do multiple of these things. It is not a set order. So I was kind of doing in a couple of cases, I think, over here, like, okay, we're going to spend 1 movement point to move a little bit because we needed to move them forward or something, and then attack, and that was kind of it, where I didn't necessarily have to do it that way. I could have looked at, early on some of these combats where it was like combat was happening just adjacent to starting units, like the attacked hex was adjacent to the other hex. I could have just done an attack, probably still have done as well, right? Because we were rolling on the 6 to 1 odds column, which is pretty darn good, generally speaking. That +1 might not have really given me much more, or it would have led to a very similar result. So the inefficiency of spending off that action point for a measly modifier, at least in the early part of the game, might not have been the best use of that action point, and I should have maybe instead used a regular attack followed up by a movement, and then some of these guys might be closer to soul. I think in terms of the way that like the math works out, I don't think there's any real way, and maybe I have to try out, play turn 1 over and over and over again and see if I can't figure out a way to do it. It seems like you can't take Seoul on turn 1 as the North Koreans. It doesn't work out. Like, you have to have some combats to get close to Seoul, and then you have to actually try to get up in there. And you're going to run out of action points with any unit you have before you can actually get up there, right? Because you're going to have to, well, there's maybe someone's figured out the right like exact order of operations to do that, but I'm not going to reverse time and try to figure that out at this point. But generally, I would say if I were playing most efficiently, I would probably be somewhere over here rather than kind of back here to start with this turn. And maybe this guy, so some of the situation would be a little bit different. And I think I just had to reaffirm my understanding of the rules and what you're allowed to do. Again, on turn one, you only get the 2 action points per unit, so you really can't do a lot of stuff, even if you wanted to. But with 3 action points, knowing that you can, combat, move, combat, that sort of thing, I that will lend itself to the more mobile parts of the campaign as we play through, and we're going to be zooming up and down the peninsula, really leaning on that ability to do multiple moves or multiple combats, or just spending those action points in a way where, sure, you don't get that +1, but if you have a pretty good attack anyway, or you've got good supporting units who are able to get to where they needed to be because they were only doing normal attacks and then movement or whatever, that is just maybe how it's going to work out better in the long run for both sides, really. Like, we're going to have to think about that. What do we want to do, and what order do we want to do them in, expecting that the enemy can still respond in some ways. So we'll keep that in mind. And if you were watching the previous video, and your experience with this game, my comment was to try to get ahead of, like, yes, I understand I didn't do this as well as maybe I could have. Oh well. you live and learn. Fortunately, I think the real differences would have been relatively minor. We effectively lost like 1 action point worth of stuff. So 1 movement maybe behind schedule, maybe 1 combat behind schedule. Not that bad. So we're in turn 2, and I wanted to show again the game turn record play rate that helps us understand what we need to make sure we do in these turns as opposed to other turns. And in this one, we're going to have something that we didn't do before. So game turn 1 was second action phase. We played through that. Here, we've got a number of different things. First thing, political phase. UN commitment segment. The UN player declares their initial intervention, their U.S. mobilization, and rules of engagement. And I've mentioned in previous videos in the series for the introduction or turn 1 that ordinarily the UN player can kind of has some bandwidth in terms of like what are they going to pick, a little bit of flexibility and freedom of choice and how they want to start things, with the cost being that will impact the global tension die rolling, which could lead to a game over. So there's this sort of threading the needle as the UN player to do what they can to save South Korea, but not to overdo it and create a too volatile a situation. And I'll just say that, like, this is something that is important as a way that this game is a strategic level Korean War game. There's obviously operational elements here that we're playing, but there is this strategic element, and this is one of the ways that this game does that strategic element, which is why, and I think in the introduction video I said, hey, don't compare this to the OCS Korea game, because in OCS Korea, you really don't have any of this stuff. You don't have flexibility. Chinese intervention happens on an exact date that there are no factors that build into that. So the OCS Korea game is really just that. It is an operational game, operational combat system. You're going to be doing operational stuff, and that's it. This is a strategic operational game. So there are strategic considerations that the players need to keep in mind. For that reason, I've said it before, I am not wanting to rock the boat so much that I take myself way out of my frame of reference for history and what is happening and what resources I have. So I will be using historical UN commitment. So in this version of the game, there is a little section here that tells you what to set things to and when to escalate things such that you're in line with what the history is, or at least what the game considers to be in history. So in this phase, we're going to actually go do that. There are tracks, and we're heading into glare territory, folks. So I'm going to try to do what I can to get it out of the glare zone where I can. And the camera's not really well positioned to deal with all of these things, so I'll do my best to describe it without playing too many circus tricks with the camera. So on turn 2, the UN initial intervention marker is placed on the 4 box. And this is technically something that I've already done. out here. I'm leaning over a little bit. So initial intervention level. That is what is going to govern the reinforcement schedule. And so on the UN player aid sheet, you can see, and I apologize, I'm going to have to mess with the focus here for a second. Let's try it like so. There we go. So an intervention level of 4 sets the reinforcement schedule. So you can see if you picked a lower intervention level, you would get fewer sets of reinforcements. And the reinforcement chart actually tells you what units are in those lettered sets. So if we had picked 3, we would be missing out on J, K, L, M, N. And by not picking 5 or 6, we miss out on some of these. But you'll see we still get U and W, but later than some of these other options like 5 and 6. So it's sort of this nice middle ground where we're going to still get a fair number of reinforcements, but we're going to miss out on some, and we're going to get some later than other options would have given us. Now, the intervention level is something that can potentially be changed via UN escalation. So in future turns, it's possible for the UN player to say, hey, I am escalating the amount of intervention that I'm doing. And when you do that, that means you will shift your reinforcements that are on the game turn track forward to match that schedule, right? So you're going to start to get things sooner. You're going to get units you wouldn't have otherwise have gotten. However, with this historical UN commitment, the UN escalation will not occur. We are going to stay at intervention level 4 for the entirety of the game. So that reinforcement schedule that we showed on screen there, that is going to be what we have for the rest of the game. I won't need to worry about shifting any of those. Now, for me, I have all the reinforcements let's see, over here laid out and organized. I'm not going to bother putting them on the game turn track. There is a place for them here. So you would put them on these boxes. You know, does this reinforcement come in during the amphibious phase? Does it come in during the first action phase or the second action phase? I'm just going to have to be on top of things to ensure that I'm going and looking at the reinforcement chart every time. I don't feel like picking up all the counters and moving them because I had organized all the counters in the game as I was setting up the map. So for me, that's just going to be easier to deal with at that point. A little bit of walking around the table, but for me, not a big deal. Okay, let's go back up over here for a second. So then we also have U.S. mobilization. Now, U.S. mobilization is going to be placed on level 1 right here. And this will increase on future turns according to this historical commitment description. So on turn 4, the U.S. mobilization marker will go up to the 2 box, and then that is it. We could go as high as a 3 or 4 box in a more open game, but we're not going to do that. The mobilization stuff, in terms of like what does this govern? When mobilization is only level 1, the UN Reconstitution segment, it only occurs in the first action phase, not the second action phase. So for a couple of turns, the UN Reconstitution segment will happen half as much, I guess is one way to look at it. And really, we have some limitations in that even in the action phase where we do the Reconstitution segment, only one unfatigued replacement unit can be reinforced or reconstituted, I guess is the right word to say it. And we've not talked about the Reconstitution segment, what that function is. We'll hit it soon enough. But basically the way it just works is that UN units, if reduced down to replacement units on map, can be built back up automatically during the segment. So just a replacement, you know, a unit with 1 step or replacement 1 unit can upgrade to a replacement 2, or replacement 2 can be upgraded back to a full division, a 3-step unit, if it's in supply and all of that good stuff. So because our mobilization level is lower at the moment, we are not going to be replacing losses as quickly as we otherwise would. Once we go up to mobilization level 4, then we're going to be able to get some more units as reinforcements. We're going to have reconstitution more frequently. So when we hit that turn 4 state, and we go up to level 2, we'll be able to do reconstitution every turn, but we're going to miss out on additional reinforcements. We're going to miss out on a few other things that higher mobilization levels would get us. So yeah, so basically first for turns 2 and 3, we're not going to be reconstituting very much. On turn 4, when we go up to mobilization level 2, we'll be able to reconstitute as normal as defined in the rulebook, and that is really it for that one. And then finally, we have the UN Rules of Engagement, which is this track here, closer. You can see my maps are a little off by 1/4 of an inch, but I can fix that later. But it is this track here. You can go up to level 7 on turn 2. The historical commitment has this placed in the 1 box. On turn 3, so next turn, it'll go up to the 2 box. And then on turn 5, it will go up to the 3 box. And then it will not increase for the rest of the game. So again, we could go all the way up to 4, 5, 6, or 7. It's going to go up to 3 and stay there. So if you think about like the full possibilities here, the historical one is one that is very much sort of like in the low to medium, like low, medium, not quite low, medium most of the time, scales of how this works. Now, rules of engagement has a couple of things. When we're at rules of engagement level 1, U.S. air units can perform interdiction missions only in provinces south of 38th parallel, so only in South Korea. When we go up to level 2, then we can perform interdiction missions on all provinces on the map except for the 4 most northern ones, which are up here next to China. And then when we get up to 3, basically we can do interdiction missions everywhere, including northern provinces except for, and I'm going to butcher this, Hamgyongpukto, which is the one way out here in the far northeast. We won't be able to do any up there once we're at that level. So this is really just a, where can we fly air support missions or interdiction missions to disrupt communist supply, basically. So that will tick up a little bit. All of this stuff matters because over the course of the game, we have the global tension, and there is a phase that starts on turn 3. So we're not doing it in this video, but when we start doing that, we look at where the intervention level track markers are, and we'll be rolling some dice, and that will potentially increase the global tension. So a more conservative strategy would be like, okay, we're gonna have low rules of engagement, we're gonna have low mobilization, we're gonna have low intervention, and so you're for sure not gonna have global tension, but you might lose the game on its merits when the communists take over. But if you're very aggressive instead of conservative and you try to intervene too much, you're going to ratchet that global tension up really high and potentially lose the game just on that. So the historical threading the needle in sort of a medium choice, I think, is fair. And what folks played in the past when this game was in its first edition, I don't really know. If you were used to playing the game from those days and you're watching this and you have thoughts on, what did you set your intervention levels at? I'd ask you a comment down below. Let me know what did you think was appropriate at the time? I don't think the historical levels were included in the book back then. So folks maybe were guesstimating what the historical levels were, or maybe somebody talked about it, in a magazine at some point or something like that. I just don't know. Okay, so important thing that we've done now is we've done the political phase, right? We've done it. It took us 20 minutes, but we did it. So we've declared these things. We are good to go, right? Excellent. So now we have the UN air mission phase. Well, okay, that's something new too, amazingly enough. So let's take a look in the rules on what that means, because we are going to have some reinforcements as it happens. So we are looking at the UN air mission phase. The UN player assigns his U.S. air units, including reinforcing air units arriving this phase, to air missions on the UN air theater display. UN close air support and interdiction levels are determined for the rest of the term. Now, here's the thing. Interdiction is used to affect supply, generally speaking. And at least on this turn, or this next couple of turns, depots are not used. So I'll just right off the bat say we're probably not going to have any of the Allied air units do any interdiction, because there's just no point, as far as I can see. And I'm trying to look at the rules very quickly to see okay, is there any other reason to do it? Oh, okay. So I guess there is a reason. So we would be the movement of North Korean combat units along roads within that province is restricted. So they have to pay a movement point to use a road instead of a half a movement point in the interdicted province. And then otherwise we'd be looking at close air support. And in that case, we're combining all the CAS values of the units, close air support values of the units, and then we'd have a close air support level marker to set up, and then each of those points can give a +1 or -1 combat die roll modifier depending on if you're attacking or defending. A pretty straightforward process. So what about our air units? Where are our air units? Well, as it happens, we look at this reinforcement schedule once again. Let's see. Yeah, it's not the AMF. My God, it's probably because I'm playing Golden Flames or Fatal Alliances and I get confused. AMP is actually air mission phase. So during the air mission phase, AMP, UN intervention level 4, we get Group A. What is Group A? Well, sure enough, they're air units. We get the Carrier Air Wing 1. I think that's what that abbreviation means. And we also get the 8th, I'm going to guess that's the 8th Air Force. Not sure. I'm going to have to look at that. With the combat values of 1-1 and a 2-1. So let me go grab those guys and we'll see what's up. Okay, here are the units that we actually got in that reinforcement. So we've got what is a F-80 and an F-4U. Now the way to read these, besides that they're in reinforcement group A, which you can see on the counter themselves, the first letter, or I'm sorry, the first number on the left there is their close air support value. So the F-80 has a 2, and the F-4U has a 1. The second number is their interdiction value, right? So if we were going to look at this, if we wanted to do any close air support, we would probably want to do it with the F-80. And if we were going to do interdiction, it wouldn't matter which, right? So if we were going to do both, then we would use the F-80 for close air support. We would use the F-4U for interdiction. And I think that's what we're going to do. So here's my thinking. The F-80 is going to provide us the ability to chip in a couple of air support points for a couple combats. Either one combat with 2 points being a -2 on defense, or I guess 2 on attack, but I don't think we're going to be doing much attacking, or 2 different combats with a 1. And I think we certainly will want to do that. I think that makes sense to try. I mean, we'll try it out. So what we'll do is we're going to put this guy in the close air support box, which, as I'm looking around the map, where is that? Oh, okay. It's just way up here. And so this was the communist air support points. We're going to put this guy right here. We get 2 close air support points or close air support levels. So that's how we handle that. For, uh-oh. Here he is. Almost lost my guy. For this, we're going to designate him to a province on the display, and I'm going to pick here. So I think I can just put him on here, right? So the important thing, there's a multiplier of 2, and North Korean road movement is restricted. So we should probably just do the whole thing, because I think it's important that we get used to doing this, because we're going to be doing a lot more probably in the future. So we multiply the interdiction value of the unit to the province multiplier. Now there is an exception that if the UN player, and in that moment we control all cities and production centers within that province, and there are no, oh, okay, well there are definitely units that occupy the province, so that's not going to be the case. So we're going to use that 2 times multiplier for the Gyeonggi province. So we're going to have a interdiction level of, well, 2, let's see. We consult the interdiction table and roll the die. We're going to cross-reference the modified roll with a column corresponding to the sum calculated. The result will be a number, which is the UN interdiction level for the rest of the turn. We would place the interdiction level marker accordingly, and then that would affect depot supply levels. But again, we're not using supply depots, so we're just doing this for practice, I guess. I do want to make sure that I get used to this process. So I need to find the interdiction table, and I'm sure it is somewhere super duper convenient on the map. It sure is. Okay, so we are, let's see, UN rules of engagement is not very high. If it was, we'd get bonuses to the die roll, but we won't. And we only got a 2, so we're on the first column. I'll show you guys where this is at on the map. There's probably a version on the player aid sheet somewhere. So UN interdiction, that first column, 1 to 7, we're going to use that, and there are no die roll modifiers because this is not winter, and nothing else there applies. So, sorry for getting sick with the camera movement, guys. Sorry. I got it on a stand. I'm trying to be stable for that reason. So we're just going to roll the die. Let's see what we get. And I rolled a 5. And a 5. So 0. The interdiction level is 0. That's okay. The reason why we want to do that is to restrict movement in the province, which means that the North Koreans will only be able to use the roads for 1 movement point rather than a half. So I'm just going to throw this down right here so we don't forget. That is a restricted road move marker. So why would I do that? Why would I bother and instead not give myself another bonus for an attack? Well, I figure Seoul's going to fall at some point anyway. And what I'd rather have happen is if these guys kind of swarm down and they take it, what I don't want them to be able to do on, say, like action phase, the second action phase, is to go and suddenly go like, you know, let's say from Seoul 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and be way down here and maybe off the map. Because there's a restricted road movement, they're only going to be able to go 1, 2, 3, 4 by comparison while they're in this province. So it slows them down. They're not going to be able to get as far, and hopefully that will negate their ability to operate a little bit. So that's the sacrifice play, right? I could try to make some combats harder, or I've at least got some air operating to slow them down. That right now seems important because the longer these guys take, and as they get down here, right, I might be looking to do interdiction down in this province or over in this province later. The point being to slow them down so that when the UN reinforcements arrive in Busan, I'm not sure the best way to pronounce that. I've heard it a couple different ways. They have more time, right? These guys are slowed down. They can't just zoom all the way down to the south part of the peninsula. We're going to buy some time with that. So that's the idea for that. So there you go. And we're done with the UN air mission phase. We have the UN amphibious capacity phase next, which I'm not terribly worried about, if only because I don't think we're going to be doing any this turn anyway. But 18.3. So this is based on our mobilization level. Let's see. Our mobilization is 1. So we have 1 amphibious and no amphibious assaults in the first action phase. So there is a track here that denotes. So we have a capacity of 1, which is not great. So we'd have to wait to do anything anyway. The amphibious capacity I should throw out there is related to like doing an amphibious invasion. This doesn't necessarily dictate like just transporting units to Busan, for instance. This is very specific to amphibious operations like amphibious assault or amphibious evacuation. So there would be a question of like, do we want to try to evacuate somebody out of a port somewhere? I'm not sure we're going to bother to, but that option is open to us. So I'm thinking we don't bother. We just try to slow down the North Koreans because we want to have, we want that opportunity to get guys into the peninsula. So okay, so we're done with that, and then amphibious capacity phase is over. So we're going to go into the first action phase. So if I look at my game turn track just to kind of see, if I wanted to, I could play around and say like, okay, now we're in the first action phase. I could do that if I wanted to. I don't need to. I think the game assumes you just move that marker along the top of the track, but that's for me. Okay, first action phase. There's some call outs here on our special sheet. Whoops, there it is. Depots are not used. North Korea has initiative. Use the special columns on the initiative tables. That's what we did last time. Assets can still not be transferred or reassigned. And roll for our Republic of Korea and North Korea reinforcements. So that's something new that we haven't done yet, is the potential reinforcements that would be coming in. So let's see. In the advanced game, the North Korean may call. Okay, some of these things will not matter. Let me go get organized on this, guys, and when I come back, I'll be able to show you the full extent of the reinforcements. We'll do North Korea first. So this is their reinforcement table. We're gonna roll a die. There are some modifiers. So this is turn 2, so we're gonna have a -1 for each of the following cities controlled by the UN player. Okay, so they do still control Seoul, but not Wonsan. So it's a total of -3 to the die roll, which means we're probably not going to get, very unlikely that we're going to get a armor asset. We can see how this works. So we'll roll our die and we'll see what we get. So I rolled a 0. So because in this game a 0 is a 0, not a 10 on your D10. That's -3, -3, full strength division received is 0. So the North Koreans don't actually get any reinforcements. So from a perspective of The UN player, they're very happy to see that. Very chill. Now, the Republic of Korea, by comparison here, get the zoom, there we go. Okay, so for each of the following North Korea controlled cities, well, they don't control any of those, but it is turn 2, so there's a -1. And there's a note here, if a reinforcement is received on turns 2 or 3, use a Republic of Korea regiment. Otherwise, on turns 4 or later, it would be a division. And the reinforcements are placed in Busan or Daegu, assuming they're not North Korea controlled. So there we would just have to pick. I'd probably say Daegu, just so you have something on the board. So we'll roll the die with a -1. And I rolled a 3. -1 is 2. So Republic of Korea doesn't get any reinforcements. So, okay, now they're certainly in greater need of reinforcements than the North Koreans. I think we would understand that. And then the UN are probably going to have something here. Let's see. During the reinforcement segment, UN reinforcements are placed in the FEC General Headquarters Reserve Box. And then we get to the deployment segment, and that's something to keep in mind here, guys. The reinforcement segment tells you what reinforcements you're getting, and then in the deployment segment, you actually place them. And then during that deployment segment, the UN player can transfer a maximum of 1 division or 3 regiments plus assigned assets from the FEC reserve box to the map. Does not affect UN amphibious capacity. And if we put them right into Busan, they'll go in there right away on their mobile sides. If we want to put them in any other port, like if, let's say, we wanted to try to reinforce Seoul or something, then we'd have to place them in a holding box and they would show up in the next turn. So we either pick down here, get them right away, or we could pick somewhere else, but we'd have to wait into the whole next turn. And to be honest, if we lose the port that they were going to, then that would be a problem, and so that doesn't seem like a very good idea. Anyway, let's see. We are going to get, according to this, Task Force Smith, which is an interesting little unit there. And then we're also going to get the 24th Division, the FEC Division, which is a full-strength unit. So let me go grab those guys, and we'll put them in place. Okay, these are our first UN-US units that are going to join the map. So you see the 24th Division there, which is a 12-4-7, 12 attack strength, 7 defense, and the 4 being anti-tank. And then we've got poor Task Force Smith, which can't do much to attack, is going to defend very poorly, barely has anything but. And it's sort of a bummer story, if you read about these guys. It's sort of put in a really tough situation, and they couldn't do much. He's a speed bump, essentially. That's kind of the best thing that we have going for us. So these guys are going to come into the FEC General Headquarters Holding Reserve Box, which is right here. So we put these guys here for a moment to represent that they are here. Now, we could have a whole bunch of units down in here, and we will probably over time be building up several different units, or we may have units that are reconstituting themselves here before being deployed to the peninsula. So this is sort of this, which I don't have covered by plexiglass, represents the bases off the peninsula over in Japan, where the rest of the General Headquarters Command is. So we could execute amphibious assault from here. We're not going to do that. We could break down, build up, or amalgamate, deploy to UN-controlled port as reinforcements. And then it's a matter of, are they going to go to a non-Busan port, in which case they have to go here. Nationalist Chinese units would go here. U.S. parachute units for parachuting, and then any amphibiously evacuated units are going to go here before they can come back to here. There's a little bit of a delay time. So these guys are going to start there. And that is really the end of our reinforcements for action phase 1. And so now it's a question of the deployment segment. So if the other factions have the opportunity to do deployment, this is when they would be setting up those units in a particular place. But here, again, we are just going to have these U.S. units placed. Now we have to kind of decide what do we want to do here. So I think historically these guys just went into Busan. If I recall correctly, I don't think they went anywhere else. I'm trying to think. Like, did they go anywhere else? I don't know. I think for our purposes, we want to have something strong in Busan, and anything else is just going to be such delay that it might not be worthwhile. So what we'll do is we'll put the 24th Division in Busan itself, and then we'd want to put the task force here, but there's an issue with that just based on stacking, so we get to place them in an adjacent hex. I'll put them here, or maybe I should do it here because that's the road, so they could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Could get there with a strategic move. Historically, I think Task Force Smith went up to Taejon. I don't have all of that like in front of me to be absolutely sure, but the important thing is we have a strong division that is landing in Busan to help. That is a start of things. If somebody wants to correct me, say no, the 24th Division went somewhere else first. Well, you let me know, but this is what we're going to go with for the time being. We don't have any reinforcing assets, so that was all that we were going to get this turn. And yeah, I think that's it. So reinforcements are done. I like how it's like Task Force Smith may appear. Let's see if there's anything else about Task Force Smith that I want to make sure I'm not missing. In case there's something special here. Oh, there is something special for Task Force Smith. Well, by golly, guys. See, this is probably not. This is probably the reason why I shouldn't do recording like as if it were live. I should have it very prepared. During the segment, the UN player may place Task Force Smith in any hex containing a railroad within Chgongchong, Chola, Gyeongsang, Pukto, or Gyeongsang Namdo province. It may be placed in a friendly occupied hex and does not count towards stacking restrictions. Oh, that's good. However, it may not be placed in an enemy occupied hex or in a ZOC. It can't move or attack, but defends normally. So, let's see. I think it makes sense. We're gonna put him in Taejon. I think that's the best thing we could reasonably try to do is just strengthen that, because this is kind of the point where they're gonna come racing down through here, and we have something else there to slow them down. I think is a good idea. That's what I'll hope to accomplish with that. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Detour, all good. Now you'll never make the same mistakes that I have. And now we're going to do the operations segment. So again, we're not using combat value modification chart because we're not using depots. No UN amphibious assault, and that's it. So remember, the way this operates is each side will go back and forth, looking to get a number of operations to carry out, and that's it. That's all we got to worry about. So again, North Korea will go first. We're going to be rolling on the game turn 2 table, which is actually a little bit worse than game turn 1. So that initial kickstart is starting to fall off a little bit. So we'll go ahead and do this. Roll the die. We got a 6. So a 6. Game turn 2 is 2 operations points. And remember that, what is an operation? It is a number of different possible things that can include activating a unit. It doesn't have to be. It can actually be amalgamation or a Chinese or Soviet placement activation. But for North Korea, these are obviously going to be activations. So for this, we're going to get 2 units will activate before the others. And here is where I'm probably not going to show everything on camera. I'm going to be a little faster now, because in the previous video you guys saw how we calculate the combat odds ratio, how the armor sequence worked, which is like a combat within a combat. You look at the tank versus anti-tank ratio, you roll a die, that tells you what your combat modifier is. There may be other combat modifiers that apply, but then you're going to roll on the odds chart, your strength points versus their defense points, and then the column may also be modified by the type of terrain that you're attacking. You're going to roll the die, and that's going to tell you the combat results. We've covered all of that in the turn 1 video. So here, I'm going to probably speed things up a little bit, but it'll be important to show you the aftermaths of things. And maybe for the combat against Seoul, that will be, more interesting combat. The one thing I want to try to do, if I can, is the next time that South Koreans go, they're probably going to try to take these South Korean regiments and, like Voltron, do a build-up, amalgamation, whatever you want to call it, action with a action point, and turn these guys into a division. And for at least the South Koreans, their division is greater than the sum of their parts. So 2 strength units will actually have, I want to say it's a 10 strength. Let me double check that. Yeah, a 10 strength as opposed to simply a 6 strength. So they get a huge bonus from being together as a division, reorganized as a division. So the South Koreans definitely want to do that. If they can do that in Seoul, Seoul's going to be that much harder to take. So I think with these 2 activations, I think the North Koreans are definitely going to want to do something to crack this line somehow, to see if they can get 1 or 2 combats on Seoul to either take it or reduce the units in the area that they cannot form a coherent division out of the local forces. If they can do that, that would be successful. So what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to work out these 2 activations. We'll see the aftermath, and we'll kind of go from there. Okay, here we are in the aftermath of those 2 activations, the 2 operations points spent by the North Koreans. It's tricky. So the first unit activated and managed to clear the opponent here, and were able to get into place so that they could support an attack on Seoul itself when the second activation went. So the first phase of the offensive went well. Moved forward, took it, got into place, perfecto. Second activation. Oh, and I should also point out that the road interdiction mattered a lot here. So it now means for units to get down, they had to do 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth to get down. So the second set activated. This guy happens to have armor as well. And he came down, again, the restricted road movement was a problem. He actually had to spend 2 of his action points to do an operational move rather than a tactical move, because he needed 5 to get here because of the road interdiction. So this was kind of important, for the Allies. Like this guy just couldn't come up and take a big swing, and these guys are still kind of in this engaged state with this unit over here that we weren't quite ready to maneuver yet. So, so that meant that he couldn't do an intense attack, but he did have the support of this fatigued unit. So it became like 3-1, 18-5. We did have armor bonus. You have some penalties to your armor determination die roll for city, but they still got a +2 for that. But the Allies spent out some of their close air support to bring that value down. But ultimately, the North Koreans still rolled pretty well. So we basically got a DR1 result. So 1 step loss, and the remaining unit should have retreated. I decided in this case to take the defender option to lose an additional step unit to stay in the hex. And so we did have 3 regiments here. 1 was removed from the combat. 1 was basically used up to hold the city. And now we have 1 unit left here to slow down the North Koreans. Now here is, like, in terms of tactical choice, I suppose there's an argument to be made that maybe I was better off retreating them the 1, 2, 3 hexes, and then there's still something holding this line, or I'm saving some units to live to fight another day. But in my mind, Seoul is so important, so important to having a delay, is because as soon as the North Koreans get it, they can head down all these spider web roads and railroads and basically be on their way down the peninsula, and I want to delay that. If it means that by the end of the action phase, a lot of these guys have been fatigued just trying to get through this cluster, then all the better. Now, again, if you've played this game before and you say, no, Steve, you got to retreat those guys out of there, you're going to lose Seoul anyway, well, let me know. I'm going to play around with some ideas and see how well it works out. Almost assuredly, though, the next North Korean activation that gets somebody up here will probably eliminate that unit, but they're going to have to, the next thing the North Koreans are going to have to do is probably clear this lane. Because even these guys, I mean, if they try to come down, let's say like this guy, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have to watch stacking. They have to get over here to attack. 6, 7, 8. They can't get through here. So the next thing the North Koreans are going to have to do is clear this lane so these guys can swing out this way and not have to worry about Zots, essentially. And I guess I should double check. Even regiments project a Zok, it looks like. So yeah, this will be important. They'll need to eliminate that next. But now we have the Allies' opportunity to go. Now they may not have a whole lot of options on turn 2, but we're going to roll the die and we're going to see what we get. So we rolled a 2. That is enough for one activation. What do you think, guys? What do we want to do here? Do we throw somebody into the fray or not? Because we can move this guy in, and that would sort of be the move that I would consider making at this point. Or we move this guy 1, 2, 3 there. You guys couldn't quite see that. Just move. This guy was further back, moving him up to here so that there is at least somebody that has to fight before they exit this province that we have the restricted road on. So this sort of keeps them bottled up in this spot for the moment. I think that's probably the best move, to be honest. So we'll go ahead and fatigue him, and that's it. I'm a little cautious of that move, but we just gotta pick and roll. We gotta pick and go. Next up is the North Koreans again, so we'll roll the die. So they rolled a 0, which gives them just 1 activation point. So they only get 1. Probably the best, easiest thing is to target this guy for destruction. And we almost don't even need to roll for it. So I'll have to think about this. If we only get 1 activation, it would probably be this guy. He would get support from these guys. They would not fatigue, but he would. We eliminate him on a regular attack. Then he could move and get set up over here, or try to move and attack and take soul. I'll have to think this through, guys. Let me go off. Okay, showing the aftermath. So that 1 activation, it was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I ended up using the unit here, which was a division with armor. Attack. These guys sort of got the support bonus. Nuked this guy. Second action point was tactical movement, who situated themselves 1, 2, 3 to here. And then the final action point was an attack, which these fatigue guys could support. And we took soul. So that was kind of an easy roll, in many cases, just due to the supporting factors. The combat was almost guaranteed to clear the hex. So I probably should have thought through another. What I probably should have done is move this guy forward instead of moving that guy over there up into that non-clear hex. But yeah, it's just really tough. I'm trying to see. Yeah. So that took care of that. I mean, that just not a good situation for the South Koreans. Of course, we knew that going in. We'll go ahead and do another die roll for the Allies. They get a 1, and so they get no activations. That's a bummer. Back to the Communist forces. They're going to get 2 more activations, 2 more points. I think what's going to be important now is we start to clear out the roads. So the one challenge is going to be getting these guys through the restricted terrain. So what I probably want to do is get it set up so that these guys can, what I want to do, have these guys over here start to clear the way over these roads. And then these guys over here can kind of start swinging down that rail line maybe, and we've got a multi-pronged advance into the Allied territory. So yeah, we'll try that. I also think it was a mistake to put the Task Force Smith all the way back in Tejon. I should have put him like up, well, you guys can't see, more over here or something, so that it at least, I don't know. I don't know. That's the tough thing. It's really hard for me. If they could get up to Suwon or something, that would have been nice, but I don't think they could go that far. So there's a bunch of things I'm trying to figure out, like what is the right way to go. So if we wanted to do something against this unit, we're gonna have to clear the road. We could take maybe this guy. He'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops. But I have to I may need to double check the river terrain here for a second. Does crossing a river cost anything if we're using a road? That for some reason I thought that you didn't have to worry about it, but now I'm a little worried that I do need to worry about it. Okay, unless the hex side is traversed by road. Okay, so then that would be fine. Okay, sorry guys. So okay, 1, 2, and we wouldn't use the road here because the road doesn't really matter because it's in this province with restricted. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We still get the road bonus for crossing the river. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But I don't think we can move through the Zoc is the problem. Even if the Zoc is occupied by a friendly unit, we have to stop immediately. So he would have to come out around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's going to be tough. And it's not quite going to work for us. So maybe we screwed up a little bit with what we would have wanted to do. Alternatively, let's see, to cross a river to get an attack on that guy is a +3. So what we could do maybe is send this guy 1, 2, 3. Seven. He would still have a movement point left to attack. That would be 12 to 1. And he would almost assuredly be removed. Yeah. So we'll do that for one of our ops points, and then for the other, we can now kind of cruise through here a little bit more now that the Zoc is gone. So I think what we'll do with the other is go, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then that would be 2 activation points, and then the last one would be a pretty easy die roll, right? It's 12 to 1. There would be some bonuses for the armor. We almost don't need to fully calculate everything. And let's see. I guess that would be yeah. Well, yeah. So he's gone. Whoops. And that's it for the 2 activation points. So we basically just, in the larger context of things now, zooming out, we've kind of cleared Seoul, and we've got some problems now where the Allies are going to have to try really hard to get forces in the way of this advance. So it's going to be their turn to activate. This time we rolled a 9, so we actually get 2 activations. So I think one is going to have to be just looking at the tough situation that is here. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. do this and just put this guy in the way. And then with the other, I think what we do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just so we're putting something in the way of the road, I think is honestly the best thing we could try to do right now, because it makes them have to spend action points attacking. I mean, it might say maybe I should just be retreating into the non-clear terrain, and that's probably a better idea, but we're going to see what we can do. We're going to see if we can hold out and fight and cause some problems and delay these guys. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to figure out what's going to work. So back to the North Koreans. They're only going to get one activation right now. I think they will try to do, let's see, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. And then they'll spend their last point to attack and just on everything here, on the 3 eliminates this unit. So he came up to stop things and he gets eliminated. So maybe this is actually a bad idea. Back to these guys, they don't get an action. Back to the North Koreans, they get 2 ops. So let's see. Well, we definitely want to take as much road as we can before it's too late. So what we'll do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We'll go ahead and just get this guy, use all of his movement points to just try to drive down as far as he can. 12 movement points. Can't use the road bonus because of the restricted move. This is as far as he could go, but he's shuffling down the corridor. Then for another, I think what we do, have this guy, I don't know. Maybe we'd have this guy go. We go 1, 2, 3. Whoops, let me do that. And you guys can't see that. Moving this guy down the road here and try to do something, try to make an attack happen. Now, the thing that's going to be different here is we would be, because there's no restricted movement there, we got the road bonus, which enables us to entertain a intense attack. So it would be 12 to 2, so that's 6 to 1 on a non-clear hex. And then there's no other bonuses, but I believe naval support is definitely there. So it's going to be a -1 of the die roll. That is rough. So that is another -1. So now it's -2. So for this, it's going to be a straight up die roll with no bonuses. 6 to 1 on the non-clear. We rolled a 2, which is not good, which is a null result, or nothing. So this guy tried and he didn't get anywhere. So back to the Allies. They get 1 activation. Well, in the spirit of saying, oh crap, we are going to have to figure something out. I think maybe what we'll do is we'll move this guy up to here. At least it's a non-clear hex. I'll show you where I moved him. So he was back here, and I moved him up to here. A little bit so you guys can see. So it's, you know, doesn't make these guys are just barely even speed bumps, but we're trying to make it so that there has to be at least some fighting that has to take place to make something happen, to get to where they really want to go. They've got to fight something on the roads. They can't just drive down really easy like that. Back to the Koreans. They only rolled a 1. They get to activate 1 unit. They've only got, by the way, 2 units left. So I think we'll do this guy. We'll get him his full movement capability, because he's going to need it, because this is going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4. Then 11. Yeah, this might be, so he goes to there, and that's it. Go back to the Allies. They get 1 activation. I think what we'll do is, yeah, this is tough. We'll go ahead and have the American division actually go, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nine, 10. So we'll move the American division all the way up there. So we've got something in the center that can hold. That might be playing it a little too far up. I don't know, but we'll go with that before it's too late and they don't get to go at all. And then the North Koreans will go. They can activate 1 unit. They only have 1 unit left this action phase. So it's going to be this guy. I think they're going to go ahead and try. They're going to do a all-out attack. So that's a +3. Against, let's see, that'll be 6 to 1 on the non-clear with a -1. It's a +2 on the chart. We got an 8, so that is a DR2. So yeah, he's kaboofed, and he is done. And so now the Allies are going to go. They get to move 1 unit. I don't know that there's much more that they can do. I think maybe what we could do is put this guy here. And maybe that's it. Then it goes back to the North Koreans. They're going to have to pass. And then the Allies will try to go again. And we roll a 0. They don't get to go. And the action phase is over. So there you go, guys. That action phase is over. Okay. Okay, I'm going free cam for a second just to hit a couple of points. We're going to finish up the first action phase. There's a UN Reconstitution Phase, but none of the UN units that are of the US can be reconstituted. This is only for non-Republic of Korea units, I'm relatively certain. So nothing there. Then we also have, let's see, yeah, only for US units. Then we would have the recovery segment, which I've already taken care of. Everyone's been flipped back up. You can see a big cluster of the North Korean units making their way through. And then we have a mine-sweeping segment. So that only applies if the North Koreans have taken a port south of the 38th parallel, and the UN forces are trying to take it back. They've got to deal with mines that were in the port area. Well, technically, the North Koreans have not taken Incheon, which is the nearest port, and no other ports over there quite yet. So those ports are technically still functional. When the Allies, or the UN, I should say, is working their way up the peninsula in the north, they'll have to deal with mines that are in the other ports. that are up there. So just something to keep in mind, which would bring us right to the second action phase all over again. The second action phase, so we have an entire action phase. Here we're going to do the same sort of thing. We're going to have a reinforcement segment. So there's going to be a desire for the North Koreans to get another unit. It's still, well, because we have Seoul now, there's only a -1 to this die roll. So we'll go ahead and do that. I rolled an 8, so we got a 7, which is actually enough to get, let's see, I want to make sure there's nothing else. Yeah, because we control Seoul, yeah, we're good to go there. So we actually get a North Korean division and an armor. So I'll have to grab that from the other side of the table, but we're going to remember that. And then for the Allies, again, their table is somewhat similar. -1 for turn 2, -1 for control of Seoul, being the North Korean control. So -2 to this die roll. Similarly, oh, I got an 8, so -2 is a 6. We actually get a full strength unit, but on turns 2 or 3, it's only going to be a regiment. So we'll have those reinforcements here to place, and then the U.S., the UN will get some units in the FEC reserve box. I'll take care of that here in just a second. Okay, here we are at the end of the deployment phase, so we completed that. And basically, the North Koreans put their reinforcing division and armor up here in Wonsan. That is a production center. I think it's, by hex, it's probably closer to the front line than Pyongyang. But the important thing is I want him to reinforce the east edge to try to provide some additional firepower down there. So once we're really fighting in the Pusan perimeter, it will be a little easier to have some coverage sort of over here when we get down. If we get all the way down here, which I think was the historical line, like this, I saw some maps that make it look like this, but I think it's this, at least according to the playbook. Not an expert on the Korean War by any means, that's for sure. So they're there. The Republic of Korea could only put units in either Busan or Daegu, so we've got one there. And then the U.S. had 2 divisions that went into the UN FEC General Headquarters Reserve Box. But the important thing is, at least for the purposes of all of this, we had 2 divisions, the 1st Cavalry and I guess this was the 25th. Only one of these can be moved onto the map during this reinforcement phase. So we got 2. They both started in the reserve box, but only one could go to Pusan. So the Cav is going to be held back here, and we put one down there in Pusan. The idea will be to try to get that division, this action if we can, try to get them as far up this way as we can. We try to pull them up. Now, here's the thing, and I'm going to acknowledge maybe faulty strategy here. Or trying to rush these guys up, I don't want to put them out in clear terrain where I can help it, but I need to control critical road junctions. But I need to get some stronger units up just so that we're not, completely devoid of space to work with, right? I mean, we could say, oh, we're gonna hole up right here and just put everybody right here, pull everybody back, and just give it to them. But I'm not sure that makes sense to do in this system or not. And it's like I'm trying to remember my time playing Korea Fire and Ice and whether or not it made sense to do that, because you could always give up retreat hexes, and so you could kind of use that as a delaying effort. I think we still want to do that, but what I have realized, so if there was a mistake on the North Korean part by not being efficient on turn 1, my mistake as the UN player right now is probably that I am not pulling back my South Korean regiments. Um, and it's kind of too late to try to change my strategy now. So what I could see happening is the North Koreans do very, very well, and eventually they win automatically just because there's nothing left to stand in their way as they go down the peninsula, and that I threw too many bodies on the roads and they got eliminated, and there's nothing to defend with. I think that is entirely possible. If it does, then I will restart the campaign and I will play through off camera and get us back to a logical place. But um, I'm a little worried I've screwed up. So what I could have done is pulled these guys back, pulled them back into that better defensive terrain just early. Just let the guys have it. Just retreat, run, 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 and then when they're together, amalgamate into the South Korean divisions, and then have stronger units generally, right? We didn't quite get it in Seoul, but maybe I could have pulled back and created them in the rough or rough, the rough or mountainous terrain, um, in the southeast, and I've not done that. So I don't know. I don't know if this mistake will be so big as to ruin the game and have to start over or not. But I'm just throwing it out there that I maybe am not playing super effectively. So okay, we've placed our reinforcements, and now we're going to get into the operations stuff. So as usual, we're going to have actions. This is the whole second phase. The first time we're doing the whole second phase, but it just goes right back to the North Koreans rolling and them getting to go. They rolled a 0, so they only get 1 activation. Well, if we only are going to get 1, we'll do this. 1, 1.5, 2.5. So we'll do a combat here to clear the way. It will be, I'm not even sure I need to roll, but I will. Oh gosh, well, I didn't roll well. Okay, so that's the armor table roll and the combat die roll. Yeah, wouldn't have really mattered. Okay, so he's kaput, and then we advance after combat. So that would have been 2 activation points, and then for a third, we're kind of in a weird situation because well, maybe what we'll do is we will move like so, and what we don't want to do is create a traffic jam in case other units can get down there. But, and I realize I just made a mistake. I should have activated somebody back here, moved up, and then the guy that was here could move further. Oh well. I don't want to move him all the way up because I want to make sure there's a space open for other units to make it down there. So he's fine, I think, just being done there. And then we'll let the allies go. And they get 1 activation. And I think they're almost certainly going to have to use their army, or their division rather. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so we're going to move this guy all the way up. And that's a little scary that he's now weakened by being fatigued, but we had to get him moved up. Or maybe the better thing would be to have him back here. Maybe that's better. Maybe we just put him right there, and then we cover those road lines. That's probably better. Doesn't matter if we have extra action points. Doesn't do us any good. All right, back to the North Koreans. They only get another 1 activation. We'll go ahead and Let's see, do 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll have a combat here. And it will be probably don't need to do much rolling here. Yeah, that's enough. So he is taken out, advance, and then we would probably do is move again and be set up there. So we've got some pressure on the flank. Back to the Allies. They actually get 2 activations now. So I think maybe Oh yeah, this is tough. It's like I don't know the best thing. Maybe maybe we get this guy moved up into here. Put another defense in there, and then we'll move another unit. There we go. All right, back to Freya. And I keep rolling really low for these activations, so there's like they're only activating 1 unit at a time every time we go. I think what we'll do is we'll activate this guy, and we'll just try to make some ground here and go down to here so that we're projecting some Zocs, making it difficult for this guy to make some moves. Maybe it would have been better to be, let's see. I think we could end up right there. Yeah, I think if I would have moved a bit better. So this guy gets locked down. So then we have an avenue to get down this rail line. The rail is not as good as road. Back to Allies. They get 1 activation. I don't think these guys can do anything. So yeah, this is going to be tricky. We may even need to divide this guy up and get him to move over here. I'm not sure what we can do about that. Yeah. I think maybe we have this guy go 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 12. Yeah, it's tough. We're running out of units, and again, it might be because I've just played very poorly. Okay, North Koreans go with 1 again. Interesting. Well, we'll pick this guy again. So it'll be 6-1 non-clear -2, which is not great. 6-1 non-clear -2, -1 for the terrain, and then -1 for naval support. But we rolled really well, so that's a 7 is enough to eliminate this guy. We would advance after combat, and then he would still have enough to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5, 6, 7.5. No, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 5.5, 6.5, 7.5. So by virtue of attacking and then doing operational movement, we've sailed down the coast. So things are looking actually really dangerous already. And I don't know if I'm just, I don't know. This is tricky. It's not good for the Allies, or the UN, I should say. 8. So the Allies get 2 activations. I'm going to have to see if I divide this guy up, will they get to move afterwards? Okay, so what I did, I believe this is legal. I spent 1 activation point to break down this U.S. division into 3 regiments. Then I used the other activation to activate a unfatigued regiment here. I think this is legal. And he has started to come down here to try to, on the next action phase, help support a defense line up here. So it's kind of a weird, tricky situation. I think this is the thing with Korean War games. Like, if you're not thinking how mobile units are, you need to reinforce that in your brain. And it could be too late. You don't want to react too late, because units can, especially on the roads, obviously, they can get very, very far very, very quickly, faster than you may be able to respond, especially given the UN player can't activate very frequently on these turns. Back to North Koreans. They roll the zeros. They get 1 activation. I think we'll go ahead and use this opportunity to send this guy down the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is the one that started in Wonsan, and he is blazing down the coast to get some additional help for our buddy who's making a play for Busan here shortly. That's looking gnarly. That's just looking tough. Back to the Allies. They get 2 activations again. What do we do? There's not much more that we can do, it kind of feels like. Like, we're stuck in a situation where most of our units have activated. We're almost going to have to just pass. I mean, I can activate this guy, but he can't do anything. He might be able to attack, and if you try to fit, like, you're either attacking across a river or you're attacking in a really bad terrain. So what would that be? 2 to 6 is 1 to 3 and non-clear. Almost every die result needs to take a step loss, or you don't hurt anyone. So I think the UN player is just going to have to pass. Like, there's nothing they can do that will change the game situation, other than maybe trying to move a guy back over to here to block a road. But that seems like it's a poor choice. Maybe what we do is we activate and we try to get this guy pulled back 1, 2, 3 to Kumchon, and hope we can just pull people back into the safety of the terrain. I think that is a mistake that I've made, that I didn't do that. All right, back to North Koreans. They still activate just 1 unit at a time. We'll make this really, really easy. It's going to be, this is as far as I think this guy could get. Back to the Allies. They get 0 activations. To the North Koreans, they get 1 activation again. I think what I'm going to have this guy do is go 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. Nah. All right, this is tricky. 3, 4, 5, 8. See, I want to get somebody else over here to attack. I might have to do it with this guy. To go 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And then one attack, which would be 24 to 2, which is 12 to 1 on non-clear. Okay, doing armor. Looks like we bit off a little more than we could chew. So our armor actually takes a step loss here. This is maybe not so intelligent. I'm not sure why I'm so hell-bent on attacking this unit. So that's a bummer. But we still roll. Yeah, that was dumb. I probably shouldn't even used armor, but oh well. And yeah, that would be enough to eliminate this unit. And I'm not going to have him advance after combat. Or you know what? Maybe I will. I will have him advance after combat. So that's interesting. Back to allies. Get one activation. I think they're going to pass, unfortunately. I just do not see what more can be done at this point. So back down to the North Koreans. They'll activate 3 more units, which will be the majority of their stuff. I think what I'm going to do is just do the rest of this off camera because this video is going to be super long. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and played through the rest of the action phase here just to move things along because this video is going to be way longer than I really wanted it to be. A couple of important things did happen, though, and it was largely due to some really bad die rolls on the North Korean side, remarkably so, to where an entire North Korean division attacking Daejeon by this fatigued South Korean unit and Task Force Smith repelled an attack amazingly. It's because I rolled a 0 and there was a negative, and they actually took a step loss. The North Koreans took a step loss here, so they are. Let's see if we can get this zoomed in a little bit. There we go. So you can see we actually have a replacement 2-star unit there. So he's fatigued, but he is a 6-4 when he's fresh. So he took a step loss. And so we replaced the division unit with a replacement. That's the first time we've done that in the game. So we did it, and he is fatigued. So that was kind of a bummer for the North Koreans. And then I'm going to zoom out for a second. There was an attack here on the 2 U.S. regiments that remained after the one had split off and went back down south. And it was basically a Defender 1 result. So they did not retreat. They did do 1 step. So an American regiment was removed, but that line was held. And then the other activations for the North Koreans just involved the rest of these guys coming down the Seoul Daejeon kind of road to where, you know, this guy is going to be reinforced by this guy. These 2 divisions are going to come down. They're going to swing through, probably take Kunsan, Cheongju, Gwangju, Mokpo over time, you know, head down into what is the southwest part of the peninsula. But that's as far as we really got. So again, it's a little, you know, it's hard to judge like what is the actual game state and what should we be looking at, because if we looked at, like, just going to try to find the picture, like if this is turn 2, the end of turn 2, So according to the game as history, which is always a fun way to compare how everything's going, we did not lose Taejon, which the North Koreans historically would have taken this turn. And then yeah, not much to speak of there. So a relatively straightforward kind of thing. There is one thing I need to look up. There was an activation that the Allies, I'm sorry, I keep calling the UN the Allies for some reason, but I'm sure other people make that mistake. I have to look at the Amphibious capability to drop the first cav, and there's something there that I need to look up, because I think we would have tried to land the cavalry somewhere where they could help defend, and I think I misunderstood when this first cavalry division that is presently in the FEC holding box could have come in, because both the 25th Division and the 1st Cav Division took action historically, and were on the peninsula. So I need to look at, did I miss something in terms of getting into the continent with these guys? So let me double check that, and if I can make a correction, I will make a correction. Okay, so I did. It's weird. The game uses amphibious assault, even though in this case it's more like an amphibious transportation activity. I could have used an ops point, and I had enough here in this last couple of goes, without it being the end of the turn, that we did move the first cav into Busan, and then we moved them. That's on camera, but I'll adjust so it's a little easier to see. Came in at Busan, and then got three, using a strategic move, units that do an amphibious assault into an uncontested hex, which is a port that we own. They can arrive, and then they can activate, which I had enough activations to do this. But if they move, if you do a strategic move, which ordinarily gives you 12 movement points, you only get 3. So he was able to move 1, 2, 3, and is now fatigued in Gyeongju. So a little bit south of where the Busan perimeter really was, but we at least now have a couple of divisions in place, and then I think that's ultimately a more accurate position, though I think historically the first cav might have been somewhere over in the west. I can't remember. I can look that stuff up. I'm not going to worry too much about it. Oh, you know what? I'm going to take that back. We are going to have... Apparently, I can land right in Poangdong, and I will just do that. I will land them, and he will... See, it's weird with the rules, guys. I'm sorry that I even have to do this. We would receive 2 action points, and so then we could only move 2 more hexes, but we could do that. And I think that's at least worth a shot. So we've 1, 2, yeah. So we have something contested. We're in front of Poangdong, which is where the first cav went. Sorry if I mispronounced that. And that's it for the action phase. That's the completion of all the activities. So there's still this kind of wide open danger zone over here that we're going to have to do something about. And it might have been better to try to get the unit over here, but I think we've got a little bit more time that we can try to get something arranged to defend Masan, but it's going to be a near run thing. I think I'm not sure how this is going to play out. Might have to do some more splitting of divisions, to be honest, if we're in that bad of shape. Anyway, so we're done with that, and then we would be then looking at the Reconstitution segment, which we're not going to do this turn because of the way Mobilization works. So that's too bad. Recovery segment, so everybody gets flipped back up to their mobile sides, for better or for worse here. And then there's a couple more steps before we end the turn here that we didn't normally do, that we'll do this time. So these guys flipped up. One thing to keep in mind is that armory units do have steps. So there's a case where we have a flipped armory unit. It is a step loss unit. Okay, recovery, minesweeping does not apply yet. And then we have an UN air mission termination phase. So this is just some cleanup. All air units are removed from the UN air theater display. So we would put them in a holding box. And we'll just set them over here for now. And then victory point phase, which, let's see. I believe this is where we're going to be counting up victory points. And this is the first time that we'll have done this, and it's a pretty straightforward thing. It's just going to come down to which areas do we control. So during each victory point phase, starting with turn 2, we gain or lose victory points. We keep a running total on the UN victory point track. And so let me go calculate these and we'll be right back. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap the video up here in just a second. A couple of things. I had to make a quick correction. I had to adjust a unit who should have, and I just corrected it because I definitely would have done this. It was a mind fart, I guess, brain fart, to have moved through Young, Dungpo, and Incheon to make them not UN controlled. So one of these guys, I think he was like down here, but he had to use movement instead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I guess he could be like one more or something, but anyway, I think it's fine. But just to show that we controlled these, and there are control markers that are useful for this purpose, to show that yes, indeed, we did capture those cities. They were taken. They were moved into and taken, and that affects the victory point calculation here in this victory point phase. So basically, we look at the victory point places. Now, what's nice is, while there's a city VP value chart in here, the map just says on the spot. So if you're just looking at, where you control, Kunsan, Cheongju, we still control Daejeon. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kumcheon is 1, so 6. Daegu, 7, 8. And then there's some more down here, 9, 10, 11, and then +4 for Busan is 15. So as I have here on the victory point track, which is kind of far away, it might be hard for you guys to see. There's a glare. There is a, let's see if I can fight with the camera to show this properly. Victory point track, which has different rows for the decimal places. So not decimal places, gosh. Anyway, your singles, tens, 100s, so 15 victory points. Now, some of that is benefit from the fact that we managed to retain control of Daejeon, which could have easily been taken. So we got, a couple extra points than maybe we ordinarily would have, because we almost assuredly would have lost these 3 cities, kind of no matter what. So there you go, guys. And that's it for turn 2. So I know this video is super duper long, guys. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean for it to be such a long one. I'm hemming and hawing on camera too much. In future episodes, we will certainly have more abbreviated play. We're going to slow down when we encounter a new mechanic. We will slow down and talk through that mechanic. But then probably, if it's just going to be me moving units around and conducting combats, I will probably show a lot less of that in the future because you guys have seen the basic process. We'll look at stuff like supply depot and attack value multiplication on camera at least once or twice so you guys can see that. But it should speed things up if I'm not doing every single thing on camera. And we'll get through this series quickly enough. So we're going into turn 3. We're already going to be, what, almost a quarter of the way through the game here soon? Nice. So see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care. Keep gaming.